We sit in dark theaters watching collections of flat, colored pixels move across a screen, yet we find ourselves weeping, or sweating, or gripping the armrests in genuine anxiety. Even as our logical centers recognize these characters as optical illusions made of code and sound waves, our bodies react as if the stakes are entirely real. This reaction occurs because animation functions as a calibrated empathy machine, using specific sensory inputs to bypass our rational defenses. Dissecting this emotional vulnerability requires looking at how this machinery is assembled, layer by layer, starting from a blank screen. The first layer applied to that screen is color, which serves as a tool for emotional priming. Warm reds and oranges trigger physiological feelings of passion, while cool blues and greens are utilized to evoke melancholy or tranquility. Layering in lighting depth manipulates mood through the psychology of suggestion. If a character stands in shadow while the rest of a room is sunlit, the brain's automatic processing filters that visual cue as isolation, unconsciously attaching a negative bias to the figure before they even move. Auditory information adds another dimension to this process, interacting with our internal systems without being filtered by logic. Fast, rhythmic drum beats can alter a viewer's heart rate and adrenaline levels, forcing a physical engagement with the tension on screen. Environmental sound design, like the specific acoustic difference between footsteps in a hollow church versus a sterile hospital, forces us to access our own memories to interpret the emotional tone of a scene. Before a character speaks, these sensory layers have already hijacked the nervous system, preparing the body to feel a specific way. When we finally introduce a character, using abstract metaphors, like a talking dumpling or a ball of yarn, provides a distinct psychological advantage over realistic human actors. This advantage relies on the mirror neuron system, a network of brain cells that fire both when we perform an action and when we observe someone else performing it. When an animated face smiles, our own brains mirror that expression, creating an automatic emotional contagion. Visual abstraction lowers psychological defenses. Without the specific, distracting details of a real face, we project our own insecurities onto simple shapes. This turns the animated character into a psychological vessel, which we subconsciously fill with our own emotional history. The final layer is narrative architecture, the structural roadmap that guides these primed emotions toward a climax. This Save the Cat beat sheet maps a story into 15 timed steps, building specific expectations for the audience. One critical point on this curve is the dark night of the soul, where the protagonist loses everything. When this tragedy hits, it triggers cognitive dissonance, the mental strain of holding two conflicting realities at once. To resolve the gap between the happy ending we expected and the failure we see on screen, our brains instinctively reach for our own past failures to make the character's suffering feel logical. The plot structure becomes a mechanism that forces us to confront our own lived traumas alongside the character. This assembled machinery acts as a Trojan horse, capable of delivering heavy societal realities to audiences who might otherwise be guarded. In the film Pearl, the visual abstraction of a pink yarn ball allows viewers to bypass political defenses and confront the systemic realities of toxic masculinity in the workplace. Bao utilizes a food metaphor to explore the devastation of empty nest syndrome, the grief parents experience when a child moves out, allowing the audience to empathize with an overprotective mother's fears. The film Hair Love uses these mechanics to normalize black hair in mainstream culture through positive visual affirmation, focusing on a father learning to style his daughter's curls. This empathy translated into tangible advocacy. The film's creators use their platform to champion the Crown Act, an acronym for Creating a Respectful and Open World for Natural Hair, which is legislation designed to prevent hair-based discrimination. Animation serves as a sophisticated psychological tool. By utilizing calculated sensory and structural inputs, it shapes real-world empathy and human connection long after the screen goes dark.